All right, when the show moves to this side, you know it's time for Social Square. This morning we're talking about youth and integrity. I want to bring up the question that we're asking you this morning. Are the youth playing their role when it comes to fighting graft? That's a question up there. Are the youth playing their role in the war against graft? SMS 224222, hashtag is daybreak. You can call in as well, 0719 777 0742 961 343. You can tweet at Citizen TV Kenya, Trevor Midja, Zinzi_K as well. Let's start off with your feedback. There's already a lot of reactions on that coming through on our SMS line. Let's see what you're saying there. This is coming in the backdrop of a research that shows that more than half of youth are willing to make wealth by hook or crook. Let's see if that has changed. And comment from Elred says no. Past demographic surveys show that the majority of the youth would engage in corruption deals if the opportunity presents itself. This may rightfully be informed by the numerous reported cases of corruption by our elected leaders and top public servants. Programs meant to empower the youth have been riddled with the mega scandals. Corruption is wasting the potential of the youth. And we still have more SMSs coming through. Yes, all right, we'll sample some of them in just a bit right now. There's a lot coming through on our social media lines as well. Joining us now is Arnold Maliba, public policy expert. He's just coming right now. Daddy Owen is still with us, an artist. And Dominic Kamau is also still with us, psychologist lecturer and dean of students at the Tangaza University College. Thanks for running in late, Arnold. We were waiting for you.
You make it look like I came in so late. I don't say so much.
So, Dominic, let's start with that question. Are the youth really playing their role when it comes to fighting corruption, or are they enhancing it even more? Because considering we are the majority, so someone, if there's a lot of corruption, the youth definitely are playing a role.
You know, the survey that I didn't catch his name, the guy from Eldoret, who just texted in.
Was quoting the Aga Khan. His name is Comment, but he was quoting an Aga Khan survey in 2016.
Yeah, and so 1 in 2 youth are willing to engage in corruption if it benefits them. And so for me, this points out to the fact that young people may not actually be fighting corruption as much. Why? And those who are fighting corruption, there is a significant percentage who are fighting corruption simply, as I mentioned prior, because it is not benefiting them, not because they are morally convinced of the badness of corruption. And for me, this is the issue. So I am a little skeptical that they are, and I would blame our education system for it, because our education system does not teach thinking. It does not teach how to think. It teaches what to think. And so how to think is about reasoning, is about moral reasoning, and we are not taught that. And so that is my worry, that I cannot say that significantly that there is a huge number, but there are numbers that are doing this. Think of Siasa Place, think of some organizations that are actually led by young people, and they're saying, no, this is enough. But how many people turn out for anti-corruption crusades or anti-corruption seminars? How many of them are young people? So when you look at that, you are a bit worried. But I will not blame the young people. They have grown up in an environment that makes them, that they have been taught that this is okay. Now, let me just take maybe a quick run. A young person grows up in a family where he or she is taught that your academic performance are everything. That you are what you do. You are how you perform. And then they see the parents not willing to spend time with them because they need to have things, so they are working. So there are 2 key lessons that a young person is growing and learning from the family, that you are what you do and you are what you have. It doesn't matter how you get to do what you do. It doesn't matter how you get to have what you have. The end justifies the means. So, and this is, I think, is a question that the young people have to face, and that's why possibly, in my opinion, they might not be fighting corruption as much as they should be.
Wow, Daddy Owen.
For me, let's look at the other scenario whereby you find that one of the most weird things that used to happen is when I used to live in Umoja Estate, is like every Friday there was a lorry just roaming around, looking for young guys. Because it's a Friday. And then for you, the first thing that just comes to your mind, today is a Friday. It means if I go in today,
Monday,
till Monday, you understand? So the first thing, as a young man, you're like, how can I get out of this place? And you wonder. So when you come out of that situation, you start viewing things in a different way. You wonder, these guys, were they strategic just to fungua this lorry, ama to release this lorry every Friday. You understand? So such situations put the youth in a very hard place to start thinking of, should I fight corruption or should I be part of it? Because at the end of the day, you're like, I'm a young man. These guys just want 500 shillings, 1,000. They want 200 shillings. You understand? And I'm off. Or should I stay here for like 3 days, 3 nights, till Monday, and then if I only give 500 shillings, I'll be off. So such situation puts you in a position where you're like, ay, bana, let me just give these guys 500. And that's corruption. That's where it starts. You understand? So it puts you as a young person in a very difficult position because the systems themselves, they don't make it easy for you. Even when you see the traffic on the roads, you're a makanga. They always look for a problem. And it always is like those kids who are in school, you always know you're the noisemaker. Even if you do, you're always on the list. So that's the challenge that the youth face, because all these things that are meant to protect you, they're working against you as a youth.
So there's the convenience of corruption, Arnold. Is that what we're saying, that the youth are by default involved in corruption because they really don't have a choice?
But I think it's unfair to use the collective, because there are substantive numbers of young people out there, a lot of young people who hate corruption and who are fighting corruption. By the way, almost 80% of everyone who's fighting corruption is young. So if we use the collective and say young people probably are not so much against corruption, I know we become subjective. And that is the problem I have even with the Aga Khan Institute of East Africa's research that was done. That was one question that has continuously been regurgitated, that young people, 1 in 5, and that was one out of almost 21 questions. We are running with that. That survey and that research then becomes subjective. It really doesn't really become representative. But while at it, there are few merits to that argument. That whereas we might not be corrupt, but we are corruptible.
Yes.
Being corruptible means that when the opportunity presents itself,
You will take it.
you are able to take it up, or you will gladly take it up. So there is that end. But like he said, when he says that we have not been taught how to think, being into academia himself, I think that is wrong. Because literally today, critical thinking is almost universal. The one thing education has actually done is that we really come out and we are very critical, including very young children. If you have met these little ones, they are challenging you.
Yeah.
Critical thinking is really part and parcel of the education system, as it were, even if it's not really out, unless we want, thinking means that we are going to be outrightly rebellious. So are young people fighting corruption, or are they really just playing around it? Of course, there are few. That's why I said the question is not properly framed if we say all young people, because the Sesa place he's talking about, young people elsewhere in other circles, including Kina Boniface Mwangi and everyone else out there, the Crusaders, have been doing it since they were young. We knew Kiem Tata while he was still in his 30s doing these things. So it's young people who have been fighting. But we still enable it. We must say that young people are the enablers of corruption. Because when we reach out to our politicians, what do we ask? We ask for handouts. And if the way we do our politics is handouts enabled, it runs on the cogs of handouts and cash, then it means that they are going to continuously steal to ensure that we get money. I know of politicians who get sick when they don't have money, so that they go to hospital, and when they have money, they come back to the ground. Of course. Yeah. Every time you hear Mheshimiwa has run away, it's because he doesn't have money, because the ground is maintained by money. So the system itself is flawed, and when young people get into this river, they are flowing with how the waves are moving.
Okay, let's bring in Joshua. Joshua is calling from Kirinyaga. Joshua, good morning.
Morning, Trevor.
Yes, go ahead with your comment or question, Joshua.
Now, I would wish to support the youth in matters fighting graft. I have been talking to a number of young people, and you can see the energy and the willingness that they have in fighting corruption.
Okay.
But I must say that one of the major setbacks that the youth are experiencing is actually it's a betrayal from the system itself. Because number one, we haven't seen any sanctions visited upon the perpetrators of corruption. So there is that sense of desperation that even if I push it this much, there is one cog within the system, especially in the judiciary, that will let me down. But we cannot ignore the fact that the youth are actually on the front line in fighting corruption because they are the biggest losers in corruption matters.
Okay.
That's my take.
All right, thanks, Joshua. Joshua from Kirinyaga says you can try and fight the corruption, but the system somehow lets you down.
Lets you down. That's what I was saying.
So,
in the first
and that is
discussion.
why I have said before that talking about reforming the system is going to be so hard. Can we push for a system decay so that then we replace it, not reform it?
So do you think young people, given the system itself is corrupt, the young people would be any different? I know you're not a fan of that survey, but still that survey showed that 30% of those young people who were questioned, 30% believed that corruption is profitable, and 47% believed that those who, rather admire those who make it through crooked ways. So one, yes, we might blame the system, but then let's also look at ourselves as individuals, our morals and our ethics and so forth. Because the system is there, but this we would be reading different numbers.
I would have asked a personal question, but I'll rephrase it and say this, that if I believe I could be a Christian, a practicing Christian, and I believe that selling alcohol is profitable. So if somebody says that they believe corruption is profitable, they have seen the proceeds of those who are practicing it. So it's just stating an obvious fact. It might not necessarily mean that they want to be part and parcel of it, but then that comes to part two of your question, that they believe it's profitable. It's profitable because we see them that engage in it live fairly better lives, they do very well, they have their issues addressed, and the rest of us who use the long and narrow have to struggle. So that does not indict young people. Why are we indicting young people for stating what is rather obvious? If you ask me a question, do you think, and that's why I say sometimes these research questions are actually phrased in a way that is really, and this research is actually 3 years old.
Yeah.
And we've kept on bringing it up.
Because it is still the case even now.
It is still the case, yes.
He's dealing with a lot of youth out there. Even, but you know, even you are dealing with the youth out there. You can tell me, you can authoritatively tell me out of 3 of them, 2 of them
with the young people for the last 7 years. I've actually used most of my adult life has actually been spent working for young people, both in church, at the National Youth Council, at the TNA Youth League, and today I work for Emerging Leaders Foundation, which works for young people.
Okay, so away from the numbers, when you say you work and you talk with these young people, when do they comfortably tell you that, listen, Arnold, me, if I was given a chance, I would enter into the government, I also steal, and bus, even I also live a comfortable life.
I have met young people who want the short route.
Right.
And I have also met a lot of young people who are out there and they really want to do things right. Why are we not speaking about these? And by the way, they are the majority. A number of them who want things to be done right.
Statistically speaking, the ones who want things done right.
30% out of how many? Out of 100?
Arnold, I agree with you insofar as you're saying we should not have a blanket judgment of young people.
Yes.
Insofar as, there is the clarity, there is the, from a point of view of concept, young people would say they do not agree with corruption. But from a point of praxis, that is where they now becomes an issue, right? So we cannot simply, we cannot, just a minute, we cannot simply take the statistic or, the methodology. I think you're very keen on the methodology of the research that, with the methodology. And possibly I might agree with you on the methodology and the conceptualization of the question, but that still does not deny from the fact from, observational evidence that we do not have a lot of young people at the front lines demanding for change of corruption, and that's why I would have a problem with your conception of critical thinking. So critical thinking, I think from your perspective, is pointing out about what is wrong, and definitely there's a lot of young people who are able to notice what is wrong. But in my opinion, critical thinking is about the question of why. What are the foundational motivations as to why we are where we are today? And so that's why I think for us we need to go back to. And I think you have a lot of hope in the system, and you would want us to replace the system by system decay.
I don't have hope in the system.
You want us to replace the system.
I've actually given up on it that we cannot reform the system. What we should do is that we should let it decay, push for a system decay and replace it, not reform it.
Who occupies the system?
Not the young people, of course.
Surely, but the people nonetheless. And people are corruptible.
People are corruptible. And I'm coming back to your statement on practice. The practitioners of corruption, the cogs that run corruption, are not the youth of this country.
Let me
And
bring
we
in,
can therefore not
let me
blame
bring
them.
Daddy Owen.
Sometimes it's more like the same way he said. If we were discussing off-air, as in, as much as we are saying they are not the youth, it's because they are not exposed, they are not in that position. You understand? To make such decisions. But most young people, even if you're put there, like right now, you're put there as a CS, will still see the same results. That's the problem. That's what you were saying.
Haven't we seen young people do better work?
They are.
We cannot paint
that.
a hopeless case. We cannot paint a hopeless because the future is young people. Yes. And by the way, even as we blame young people, it's important to actually come out and say that to have proper adults tomorrow, you take care of the children today.
We're not blaming them.
We are.
We're not blaming them.
What are we saying? What are we doing?
We're just discussing to see, are we doing enough to fight graft?
Yes, we are. And if young people were not out there coming out and complaining, going out on social media, probably the president would not be as angry around corruption as he is.
I don't trust his anger.
But what do you mean? That's a facade. Just being angry, is different.
That's what I'm saying. Even that excuse that they are fighting corruption is only justified by the anger of young people. Okay. If it weren't there, probably no one would be doing anything.
Right. Gentlemen, we need to take a commercial break. We need to take a commercial break. Hold that thought that we need to take a commercial break. But before we do that, we want to take a look at some of the feedback that is coming. I believe we have about 3 SMSs and 2 tweets. Hashtag Daybreak is your ticket into the conversation. All right, Trevor?
All right. Kibor Michael says it is sad that a good percentage of the millennials are now embracing this bad habit. In fact, they are no longer against the vice. Their concern is why they are not involved in some of these loots. The youth's take on graft is still questionable. Yes, that's Kibor Michael there on Twitter. Let's see again if we still have more coming through. We'll try and sample as much as we can. Dahir says no, because the youth have not been involved by the government agency, yet the corruption has been rampant both national and counties. We need to be part of the team which is ready to fight the war against graft. I like how DPP and DCI are doing it. All right, let's see if we have an SMS as well from 22422. The hashtag you're using is Daybreak. This is still on Twitter. Levin Mapesa says the same suffering unemployed youths, or are there others? All right, the same suffering unemployed youths, or are there others? In fact, the rate at which public money is being siphoned, they're looking to get a share of the pie. Who doesn't want to get rich without breaking a sweat? Arnold, these are the youth you're talking about, and you can see what they're saying on SMS and tweets. Mwalimu Ogola says the youth are frustrated and desperate, wasting themselves on drugs and betting. They can engage in corruption due to lack of jobs, and nobody plans for them anyway. We still have another one as well coming through. That is definitely not one SMS, Arnold, but let's see another one. Charity begins at home. You can't send your child without buying them a sweet. So this is something that has been bonded on them, hence hard to beat.